I've spent 5 years consistently journaling, but I have notebooks and journals that date back all the way to 2017, 2018, when I was 12 or 13 years old. And throughout these several years, I have curated a system that works for myself and who I am and what I need outside of the influences of social media, of Pinterest, of YouTube. So I wanted to show you guys my naturally occurring journal ecosystem. And at the end, I want to share some tips to get into journaling, because when you look on social media, you see journaling as this big, grand thing that you have to be perfect at immediately, when that's just not the case. So if you are looking for a realistic version of what a journal ecosystem will look like, just keep on watching. Hello everyone, my name is Alex. If you are new to the channel, I am currently doing a process that I like to call Road to Minimalism. I basically am just talking about my experiences of trying to be a more conscious and intentional consumer. And while having a journal ecosystem doesn't exactly tackle the minimalist part of that stuff, it definitely tackles the intentionality of the whole point of minimalism. And for me, minimalism, part of it is slowing down, being more intentional. And I cannot think of a better way to do that than putting pen to paper, writing about your thoughts, using your hands. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. These are the notebooks that I am currently using. This is my current ecosystem. Currently in use, I have 7 journals, and this spreads across 6 categories. So I'm going to go through the categories. Number 1, and the journal style that I started off with at the very beginning, was just a normal diary journal. This is the one that I am currently working on right now. I started journaling in this style back in 2020 during COVID, when I was feeling not the best about myself and I just needed a place to rant and talk about my feelings. It felt like I was removing the burden of those feelings and those emotions and putting it on the paper so that the paper could then deal with that burden. That's how it felt like, and writing down everything that I was feeling about really made me feel so much better. This was my very first journal where I started this process. It is a random journal that I had laying around, and I just wrote. I don't want to show the pages that closely, but if you'll notice, and this is something that I have done throughout all of my diary journals, is that every single page is full. There is not a single space left unwritten on. In some instances, when I needed to write a little bit more, I would put a piece of paper in there. This would either be topics that I was seriously thinking about, letters that I wrote to people that I knew were never going to receive them. And since that time, I have filled up 3 of these journals, and I'm currently working on my 4th. I ended up transitioning into the standard moleskin notebooks just because I liked the colors, I liked the layout. In the back of the journal, there's a little folder, and every year I would write a little letter to myself that I would read a year later. And once I read that letter, I would then write another letter for myself answering all the questions that I had asked at the beginning of the year, and just plopped it in the envelope. This system really worked for me for a very long time, but it was starting to become pretty repetitive because I would write this way, in the sense that I would fill up every single page. I definitely developed a perfectionist attitude towards it, aka I could never leave a single page not written on. So I needed something that would kind of branch out a little bit to where I could start experimenting on different things. So now let's talk about my creative journals. I started this journal fairly recently, about a month and a half ago, because number 1, I was struggling to figure out my identity and who I am. I was also starting to lose my creative expressions. I was and always have been a pretty creative person, but as always, social media kind of just takes control of that, and you start losing that part of yourself. So I created this journal to start talking about my identity, to kind of talk about my observations, just random thoughts about random things, and to do it in a non-perfect way. I'm allowed to make things messy. I'm allowed to try different forms of journaling in here. And one of the things that I discovered through starting this journal was junk journaling. Now, I had known of it, but I had never tried it, and so I tried it for the first time in this journal, and it has become something that I am pretty interested in. I've also discovered an interest that I want to start working on, and that is watercoloring. This journal was so good in the sense that I started using my hands again. I started creating things with my hands, with things that I had just lying around. I have a place to put things, I have a place to make things. This is literally anything and everything will go into this journal until I finish it up. This is one of the first creative mediums that I am actively working on that is outside of technology, which is crazy. One of the spreads that I recently made was for my birthday. I just had my birthday, so I printed out a few things. My partner got me flowers, so I put some of the petals on here. I listed out things that we did. I have little notes from my grandparents. I mean, it's just so fun to do this stuff, to actually just use glue, tape, literally whatever you have lying around. This one is a little bit more junk-ish. There were just random things that I had collected that day, and I wrote out what I did. One of the things that we did that day was watercoloring, and watercoloring has become an interest of mine. It has become a medium that I want to improve on. I bought a little miniature watercolor set. So for the past week or so since I've gotten that watercoloring kit, I have been working on watercoloring. I have acrylics, but I do think that I find watercoloring as a medium just a lot more fun and expressive and experimentative. It just feels so dreamy to look at that stuff. So I've been doing medium-sized projects for watercoloring just to practice. I'm just trying to work on putting the paintbrush in the water and then on the paper. I'm not worried about being perfect right now. It's just a matter of putting time into the craft. And so yeah, I was making medium-sized pieces, but I was also making smaller pieces, and it got to the point where a lot of the smaller pieces were just kind of strewn about everywhere, and I didn't really have a place to put them. And so in came along this little journal. This journal is a blank page journal, and I never knew what to do with it. When it comes to journals this size, I either like to have it lined or with a grid or dotted something. So with it being plain, I knew I wasn't going to draw in it. So literally today, I decided that I would start gluing my small watercolor projects into this journal just to have it all in a collection and I can see my progress. So as you can see, this is the first one that I added onto the journal. That was from like a week ago. And you can see I'm slowly adding stuff. I'm slowly trying new things. This was from yesterday. And my newest piece, which I'm pretty proud about, I'm pretty happy about it, is this one right here. I am pretty proud of it. Obviously there is a lot that I need to work on, but just having this stuff in one place is going to make things a lot easier to look back on, and I'm really excited. The biggest reason that I wanted to learn watercoloring is because I wanted to update my travel journals. So I have travel journals. I started doing this back in 2023 when I took a month abroad in Europe, and this was this journal. I filled it up basically almost completely. I filled it with stamps, with postcards, with receipts, with tickets, with all little pieces of stuff, random things. I put it in here, and it became that I didn't really buy any souvenirs. This was my souvenir. So obviously I loved the idea and I continued doing it. So I am currently working on this journal right here. Inside this journal, I have my trips from Madrid, Barcelona, and Toledo in Spain, from Rome, Siena, and Florence in Italy, and then San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. And the same things, I would put little postcards. You can kind of tell I was starting to be a little bit interested in the watercolor back then. But yeah, I wanted to learn watercoloring just to kind of spice up my travel journal as well as my normal journal, at least my creative journal. It doesn't hurt to learn a new creative medium. It really doesn't. Now, I talked about my pretty specific journals, but I want to talk about one that everyone recommends that you use or that you try out first time, and that is a commonplace notebook. This is what I would consider my commonplace notebook. It is nothing special. In here, I keep book quotes, personal observations, monthly recaps, and just other things that I want to keep track of. Another notebook that I have that is also considered commonplace, which I am reintroducing into my ecosystem in the next few weeks, is this one right here. In here, I kept notes from books that I was reading. I also wrote down words and phrases of languages of countries that I was visiting. I honestly do not like this notebook at all. The pages are lined and it is way too thick to really write anything, especially since my handwriting in small notebooks is really small. Like, just look at this. This is my handwriting in small notebooks, but I can't do that on here. But it is something that I have, and it's something that I bought, so I'm going to use it up. And my family is planning on going to Portugal in October, so I will be using this to collect phrases and words and everything to memorize when we go to Portugal. Now, my fifth category of journals is my to-do list journal, and I keep that right here. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of my categories, I kind of have the same notebooks, specifically these three. I bought these back in 2021 as like decor, and I've slowly used them, and I think it's pretty cool that I'm using them all for different reasons, and I'm going to use them up. This to-do list notebook keeps all of my to-do lists. Accidentally moved you guys, sorry. At the beginning of the journal, it used to be my to-do list for all of the school assignments that I had to do, but now it is used for my work to-do list of things that I have to do throughout the day. So I think it's fun that I can see that slow progression from school to work. There was a time where I wasn't using this, and instead as my to-do list notebook, I was using this one. This notebook is a 100% homemade notebook. I made it myself using things that I had around the house. I didn't buy a single thing for this notebook. I made the paper myself and I used it for work. This was my little work journal. But this one is just a little bit more convenient. The idea of making your own notebook is pretty cool, and I did that. And lastly, my 6th journal category, which is super boring, is just my grocery notebook. I've had this notebook since middle school, but in here, since I've lived alone, I just collect my receipts and manage all of my groceries in here. I mean, it's nothing special, but it is something that I frequently use. All right, this is my entire journal collection. This is what I got going on. You know, I didn't think of myself as a journaler until very recently. And maybe I don't have the biggest collection. Maybe I don't have the most aesthetically pleasing collection, but this is what works for me, and I'm pretty happy with it. Now, okay, I want to talk about some tips when it comes to getting into journaling. Guys, I'm so sorry. My refrigerator just turned on. You're just gonna have to deal with it until the end of the video. Now, these are really standard tips, so if you've already heard it and you didn't really think much of it, me telling you right now is the sign to actually pay attention and actually acknowledge these tips. Number 1, literally everyone says this, all right? So this is not original. Just start. Just start. If you learned about journaling through social media, you have a warped version in your head of what journaling is supposed to look like. And you also have absolutely no idea how you like to journal when you start off for the first time. So just start. Just start by putting pen to paper. Write down your thoughts. Write down about what you did during your day. Do you have a receipt from your groceries? Stick that onto a piece of paper. I don't know, literally anything. You are at the very beginning of this process. You can literally do anything and experiment. The world is your oyster. The world of journaling is your oyster, and you don't know what you like yet. So just try things. Another tip is find out why you want to do it. Journaling is not just about the aesthetics. It is about conserving your thoughts, your beliefs, your interests onto paper. It is not about making an aesthetically pleasing layout that you ultimately want to post to social media. My next tip is that when you start off, use things that you already have. You want to prove to yourself that you're actually going to do this. If you're wanting to do this just because you want to buy all of the nice new journaling equipment, all the pens, the washi tape, all that stuff, you are in it for the wrong reasons. For me, I have proved to myself that I am going to use what I have in my vicinity to do these things. And you can see that in these journals that I've had just laying around for years. You can see that in the notebook that I literally made by hand. Prove to yourself that you want to journal because you have a genuine interest for it and not just because you're into it for the aesthetics. The next tip is that your journaling style is unique to you. Do not feel like you have to match a certain vibe or feeling that you found online. Don't get bent out of shape if it does not look like your Pinterest board. Obviously, I understand that some journaling things have a level of aesthetics to them. So I'm not trying to bring down people that want to make their stuff look aesthetically pleasing. I want to make my stuff look aesthetically pleasing, but if that's the only reason why you want to do it, then there's something missing. And lastly, don't force it. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I'm not trying to say that you are not built to journal, but there are creative mediums that you may see online that you're like, oh my goodness, I want to try this. I think it's so cool. But the only reason you got into it was because of social media, and it actually doesn't bring that much interest into your life. I guess an example for me would be I like creating YouTube videos. I like painting, but like some creative mediums that I don't like, that I'm not interested in, is filmography. I don't have the patience for that, honestly, and I have so much respect for people who do that. Another creative medium that I'm not super into is music. I'm not interested in creating music. I don't know how to play a single instrument because I have no interest in learning how to play a single instrument. My current music taste is made up of Sabrina Carpenter, Bad Bunny, and The Warning. So that's just one of the examples. It's like if I'm not super interested in that stuff, I'm not going to force myself into getting into that creative outlet. So if you try out journaling and you realize that it's just not for you, don't push yourself because everyone on the internet is talking about journaling. If it helps you, it helps you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's all I'm going to say. All right, that's it for today's video. I hope you learned a little bit. Hope you got an idea of what a journal ecosystem could look like. I like watching these videos because so many people have so many different ways of journaling, and it's fun to see new ideas. There's some types of journaling that I want to get into. I want to log the books that I read because I've gotten into book reading again these past 2 years. Maybe in the future I will have a designated journal for junk journaling instead of just having a general creative journal where I put random stuff in there. But all of it takes time, and I have to, again, prove to myself that I'm going to actually commit to these things before putting my money into this equipment. But anyways, if you have any comments about the video, if you have your own little journal ecosystem, let me know. Share your opinions in the comments. I would love to hear your agreements, your disagreements, all that stuff. Have a nice day, and I'll catch you in another one. Bye-bye, guys.